I went from being a very independent lieutenant colonel in the Royal Marines to somebody who couldn't leave the house, who couldn't even form the words to speak, who was scared of everything.
Joe Winch spent nearly 20 years serving in the Royal Marines, rising to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. His military career came to an abrupt halt when he was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, an invisible injury that stripped away his career, his sense of identity, and his ability to live a normal life. But through climbing, he found a new sense of purpose. Today, Joe uses his lived experience to support fellow veterans facing PTSD, helping them reconnect with life beyond survival. This is his story.
Around the time that I was at university and I was looking for something more meaningful, once I graduated and moved into the workplace, I kept circling back to the military. And I think the Royal Marines appealed because it was tough. It was going to be a big challenge.
Was it the challenge you expected it to be?
It was everything and then some, actually. It was a joy. It was such a privilege. It really, really was. And I found myself surrounded by people that were really living life 110%. They were showing up in all sorts of ways to get after the wildest of adventures, and that was inspiring. There was a shared encouragement, always do more, go further, go higher. Living a life without limits, really. It took me far beyond what I thought life could be. There was excitement about being part of something that was far bigger than me. It brought with it a spectacular simplicity to life, I think, because of how close to the edge of life we were living. Nothing else mattered in that space. I think I hadn't experienced such a powerful sense of purpose and belonging before or since.
During his 2 tours of Afghanistan, Joe lost a large number of close friends and colleagues.
It was an awful lot of people, and it was a quirk of just the jobs I'd had in the Royal Marines. So I ended up knowing, a lot more people that were hurt than perhaps I otherwise would have done. I wouldn't want to have not known them, to give myself a bit of a break in the here and now, even though it was very painful and very frightening at times. I have a clarity and a perspective around those challenges now that makes me value them, treasure them in many ways.
Joe noticed a decline in his health, both physical and mental. In 2017, he was diagnosed with complex PTSD and hyperacusis caused by a blast injury. Sounds that most people would barely notice became unbearable, making life at home incredibly difficult.
You can't get away from sound. You can't get away from noise. It's everywhere. And it's wonderful, right? Sound and noise, it's the rhythm of life. It's beautiful. And when it triggers and takes you back to the very worst moments of your life, well, that's horrendous. It would be doors opening and closing, cutlery being put on a table, toys being dropped, cars driving past me. Any and every sound would just ransack my day.
You're a high-functioning soldier, Lieutenant Colonel in the Marines, you're a leader of men. You then have your career essentially come to a halt with this diagnosis. How did you cope with that element of life, Joe?
Yeah, that life was destroyed through that experience, through that diagnosis. It destroyed the life that I had. But it was compounded by the fact that I just didn't respond to the treatment. What had always worked for me in the rest of life was whenever I encountered a problem, encountered a challenge, I just had to try harder, think smarter, push further. And generally that had worked for me. That had rewarded me in the Royal Marines and in life elsewhere. But here I found myself in a situation where the harder I tried, the worse it would get. And I was supported by wonderful clinicians, really, really wonderful, committed clinicians. And I was showing up for that treatment, but it just was not working. It left me believing that, well, it's got to be my fault. But when the treatment fails, when the treatment isn't enough, and when hope goes, that's the worst of it. That's the really dangerous place, because when you lose hope, that's a frightening place to find yourself. It set fire to something inside of me that started to burn. That wasn't content that this was the end of the story, and that, well, if this hasn't worked, then I'll look for something else. One of the most exciting and promising areas of research when it came to trauma and recovery and healing was the work looking at psychedelics. And after the conventional system said, this is as good as it gets, I thought, well, I'm ready to give this a go.
Through his research, Joe discovered the Beckley Foundation, a British charity that has been at the forefront of research into the transformational potential of psychedelics for over 25 years. Joe signed up to take part in a Beckley retreat in the Netherlands, a legal supervised program using psilocybin in the hope of finding a way forward where other treatments had failed.
It felt like rolling the dice. I was pretty scared, but I was even more scared of having to live with the pain that I was in. That was the bigger fear, which is why I was ready to try anything. And so although I went into the experience with very modest expectations, if I could get 5 more minutes out of the day, that would have been a result. But what I got was the most beautiful, the most profound, I think the most challenging, but the most transformative experience of my life. It hasn't cured me. The difference is, though, I feel alive now, and life is wonderful. And I've not needed to see a mental health professional since. I've not even needed to see the GP since. The psychedelics, they don't cure us. They're not a silver bullet. They open the door for us, and whether we step through that door, it's entirely down to us. It's a really exciting space that could potentially save so many lives.
Alongside his psychedelic treatment and a daily routine of breathwork and meditation, Joe found climbing and mountaineering had a hugely positive impact on his life. From the Alps to Denali and Everest, the mountains gave him new purpose and a way forward.
Going to Everest really was about proving to my children more than anybody else that I was still here, that I was still alive, and I was still choosing life. That was what my Everest journey was all about. And so as I came off the mountain, it was an extraordinary thing for which I'm eternally grateful for having had the chance to go there. But I realized very fundamentally it didn't need to be that big. It didn't need to be that extravagant or expensive or exclusive. It could have been something so much more simple, accessible, and regular. And so that's what I've tried to recreate now with Climb to Recovery.
In 2023, Joe became CEO of Climb to Recovery, a charity founded in 2016 by Army veteran and double amputee Neil Heritage. The charity supports wounded, injured and disadvantaged service people and veterans through fully funded climbing and mountaineering programs.
I'm so proud and humbled and grateful for the community that is Climb to Recovery. It's full of the most extraordinary people who, against all odds, are showing up over and over again. Not really for themselves, but for their friends and their families. It is such a privilege to be a part of that community, because at the heart of it, the most important thing is community. Without a sense of community, without a sense of purpose, without something to look forward to, we've got so little else. And so in many ways, what we've done is we've recreated the very best bits of military service in that regard. The work we do isn't about the money, but it cannot happen without the money. And it is through the creativity, the imagination, the trust of grant-giving organizations that we are able to deliver what is often recognized and celebrated as both life-changing and life-saving. It's transforming the lives of service people and veterans and their families and their communities, and in turn then society more broadly. I still have complex PTSD. I still have to manage life quite carefully, but I feel alive. I can feel love. I can feel gratitude. I'm not afraid anymore. And I'm not in so much pain either. I'm grateful and celebrate life every single day. And I feel so fortunate to have had the experiences, the journey that I've had.